All right, back-to-back MP panels. They've reconvened our regular Thursday group before they head out on the final Commons week before the summer recess. Green Party leader Elizabeth May, Conservative Parliamentary Secretary Erin O'Toole, and NDP finance critic Nathan Cullen. Welcome to you all.
Thanks, Don.
All right, I keep looking at the counts. 2014, abortion is still being talked about in the House of Commons. But the bishop or the cardinal does make an interesting point when he sort of suggests that, really does abortion have a place in candidate selection? In other words, should you limit candidates' beliefs when they're running for certain parties? And I guess Justin Trudeau says, yeah, I mean, that's not a problem I'm going to have. But I'm curious what you think, Erin. I mean, is this something that should be, you can preclude somebody based on moral beliefs, even from seeking office, never mind voting on a bill or something that comes onto the floor of the House of Commons?
I think it's very shocking. One thing about the House of Commons, Don, is it represents Canada. We're there to represent our community, the diversity of Canada, the diversity of faiths and viewpoints. And to suggest that for some people that hold these convictions that I don't want you on my team is very narrow, and it's actually runs counter to diversity and the right for Canadians to have a respectful debate on these issues and to hold opposite opinions. And the Conservative Party, we're proud of the fact that we have a lot of free votes in our caucus. We have a lot of viewpoints on a lot of issues, including this one. But the leader sets the agenda, which the Prime Minister does, but there's a lot of respect for viewpoints. And I think, it harkens back to Justin once said he admires China as a country to emulate. Well, he takes that dictatorial position and doesn't want people even running for a nomination if they don't believe in the same things he does.
In fairness, I don't think Justin Trudeau ever said China was a country to emulate. And I also think that if there are people...
Admired.
Emulate's a bit much. On the other hand, I think that it's Conservative Party may have people with lots of different views, but they're not allowed to talk about them. The thing that I have a problem with isn't the question around the abortion issue as much as where's grassroots democracy in this country? Where is the ability for a member of parliament to represent their constituents? And is every vote a whipped vote? Are there, is it really important to say that you're not ever allowed to vote in a way that the party leader doesn't want? And that's how the other parties operate. So for us, it's not that I am fiercely and forever going to defend the rights of women to access safe and legal abortions. But we wouldn't screen out a candidate because we don't have whip votes and we don't believe in top-down control in that way.
All two MPs, but still, you're very good about that.
She's the leader and whip.
No, it's a policy
It's
matter.
in your Constitution.
And it's also true for Greens around the world.
Okay. Nathan, is there Archbishop out of line on this one, do you think?
No, he's free to express his views, of course. He's a leader of an important faith community.
What he's saying out of line?
Is what he's saying out of line? I don't know. I mean, the clip, I've only heard the clip that you've played in some of the news reports, so I don't know the full context, but what I heard was fine. I think where the trouble happens for Mr. Trudeau is around this approach, because I don't know if you watched the scrum Mr. Trudeau did following this,
right.
And a question was put by one of your colleagues, well, what about current members? And there was a kind of a long, awkward pause, and he was trying to figure out what to say about what he does with MPs that are in the Liberal caucus right now that are pro-life MPs that are anti-choice, however you want to frame it. I don't know if they thought this one out, I guess is what I'm saying. And to Elizabeth's point about how do we respect the democratic values of what's going on in the riding associations, that's also been in the last little while in Trinity Spadina and some of these nomination races, somewhere where the vision Mr. Trudeau has and then how he applies it on the ground bumps up against the Liberal grassroots. Now, that's for him to sort out. For me as a New Democrat, I campaign, I run, I'm a pro-choice candidate, my party is a pro-choice party. There we are. That's pretty simple.
We have to add, Don, yesterday was a historic day because it was actually the first free vote the NDP had on a private member's bill, 571, from one of their own members, where their caucus split on the bill entirely. Really, and Samara has studied this. Our party is the only one that consistently allows its MPs to vote.
The freewheeling, wacky conservatives.
You're forgetting the Green Party. We split on votes all the time.
Sorry, I am forgetting the Green Party.
But it is true that the NDP has a record of greater discipline on every vote, even the Conservatives.
Iron discipline.
If I could get one clarification from you on the NDP policy, is anti-abortion an absolute in your party, in the sense that what if a bill comes forward and wants to deal with prohibiting sex selections abortions, for example, where people go, I've got a girl, I want an abortion as opposed to a boy. Yeah. Is there limits on that, or is it just free reign abortions under any circumstances?
No, we are a pro-choice party, New Democrats, and that's been long-standing tradition, going back all through our leaders and those that run for us. It's as well known as we are pro-environment, as we are pro-worker. I mean, those kinds of things sit at our genetics. So when we talk about, I think Elizabeth's point was also fair. Aaron describes the freewheeling, nutty conservatives, everything goes, but when conservatives have tried to raise the issue of abortion, Mr. Warawa and others, it's not been the Green Party or the NDP that have pushed back on that. It's been the Prime Minister's office who have said certain conservatives are not allowed to raise certain issues. So let's be careful when we're tossing stones here. It's not exactly, Mr. Harper's accused of many things. Being loose on the reins.
I really wanted to get to you on this because the government's been acting very uncharacteristically lately. Yeah, there was a tanker safety announcement on...
That's not uncharacteristic. That's just trying to grease the wheels for Enbridge.
You were getting to my theory.
Let him get to that question.
Right,
Come on.
sorry.
Tanker safety, pipeline safety, today nature conservation. It just seems there's a big
trying to get
green paint going on this government all of a sudden. You think it's to get ready with Northern Gateway next week or two, right?
Well, I don't, the announcement, I welcome the announcement for conservation. I welcome
it's a legitimate,
funding.
real announcement.
And it's money to the Nature Conservancy of Canada for acquiring lands. And there is some money in there for wetlands restoration. Now, of course, if we still had an Environmental Assessment Act that worked, if we still had the Fisheries Act, we wouldn't have as many places that needed to be restored, and nor is that money sufficient to deal with the destruction of ecosystems, particularly aquatic ecosystems, that's been happening since the horrors of Bill C-38 in 2012. But all of that said, the tanker and pipeline stuff is all about trying to get British Columbians to accept something that British Columbians will not accept, which is bitumen mixed with diluent over our lands through traditional First Nations territories to get to ports to be put into super tankers. It's inherently unsafe.
Are they, quickly before we go to these other people, is it a big step? Were the safety moves they made symbolic or actual?
Well, the spill prevention stuff, the more that you actually tell a pipeline company you're going to be liable. So the pipeline liability on land,
up to $1 billion or something.
But the pipeline, once you get to port, the taxpayers of Canada will be paying for cleanups because there simply isn't enough money in the pot they announced this week to deal with a super tanker spilling dilbit. We just can't take that risk.
Your leader's the Jolly Green Giant all of a sudden.
Well, Don, there's been some substantive measures here that we've said are coming, and the review of them happened. The polluter pay principle is enshrined with very serious penalties. There's requirements on tanker safety, double hulling, all these sorts of things that we said were going to come for passages and all parts of inland transit as well. And then the conservation plan today does build upon money we've committed to the Nature Conservancy Trust to acquire more lands for conservation. We've also expanded a park in the north. We have the first Rouge National Park in the Greater Toronto Area, the first urban park. So there's a lot we are doing. It's substantive. Elizabeth had a few compliments amid her flurry of
not going to get many of those.
It's important.
Here's what's coming, is that in June, the government, the cabinet, Mr. Harper is going to make a decision on Enbridge Northern Gateway.
Which terminates in your riding.
Which I live on the front lines. The good people in Kitimat and all the coastal communities are directly taking the risks for this proposal to ship this bitumen to China. Mr. Harper's painted himself in a bit of a box politically, where he has made commitments to the Chinese government that this project is going ahead. He made them with Enbridge when he was in China, and has also said this is, nation building and all the rest of that stuff, except for the fact that British Columbians are 2/3 opposed to the project, in part because the first approach from the Conservatives was to call everyone radicals and foreign-funded enemies of Canada, which didn't go over so well, surprisingly enough, in British Columbia, where people are having this question. I actually think this actually gets to some of the larger political questions for the 2015 election. We talked about this before, Don, where if Enbridge is on the ballot, so to speak, in 2015 in British Columbia, Conservatives are in a lot of trouble because you have that kind of overwhelming opposition about such a controversial project. The Conservatives have botched the Green file from day one. Doesn't help.
Coming back. All right, I'm out of time. Thank you all. Appreciate you coming in. See you after the break.